Welcome to the Zixi podcast. Today we're joined by Chris Allen, CEO of Red5, and Brett Fasullo, SVP of Sales. Red5 is known for ultra-low latency streaming platform that powers interactive video experiences. Chris and Brett, welcome. How you guys doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having us on the podcast.
Thank you.
To kick off, how do you define innovative broadcast workflows with real-time streaming?
Yeah, I mean, innovative is kind of a loaded word, right? Because for some people, innovation is like pretty basic for others. So I guess for me, the people leveraging real-time video in these kind of broadcast workflows is a lot of it's that kind of REMI thing where you got remote people who need to be, they can't be in the studio, but they need to be a part of it. Obviously, real-time video streaming is absolutely essential for that, to be able to be like in sync with the comms and everything else. So I think the remote, contributor to the broadcast is a big part of it. But even if they're at the studio in the network, a lot of the older workflows involved high latency streams, like using HLS to actually monitor what's going on. And then if you have, and then that's adding many seconds of delay in it. And if you're trying to do like commercial cuts during a live sports game, for example, like one of our professional like baseball groups that we work with Zixi and Red5 is a part of that. They're using this for commercial slating. So they're watching the live games, and if they have a walk-off home run, they need to trigger a certain type of commercial for that versus something which is like between innings, So, but those things are dynamic. They're happening during the game. They're not always at a set time, and they need to be pretty precise about when they're going to cut, right? And before they had us in the mix, it was always a little bit of guesswork. Like you'd be like, okay, we're going to be cutting, but they were cutting off commentators as they were going. It was a little bit a nasty guesswork. So I don't know if that's innovative, but it's very practical, and it's a good use of real-time streaming in it and those kind of workflows.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of broadcasters used to do this all on-prem. People would be listening in a truck, but now they're moving that to just fully remote, and your technology is really helping that. Are you seeing a lot of customers moving from the hardware production to more of like the remote production with your technology?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the movement of cloud like deployments is a big part of that. And even when it's not necessarily cloud, they may be hosting it themselves or on like a provider like Lumen where it's like using edge computing. It's still important that it's accessible outside of the traditional studio or broadcast group, and then made accessible for people. And then obviously the latency has to be low enough that they can't really perceive that they're not in the studio and don't have all the or the production truck or whatever.
And then how many events can you handle? So we're talking about that major group, but what about our other shared customer like a Flow Sports where they've got 30,000 events a year? You're not exactly going to be doing on-site production with everybody being there all the time. So
yeah,
this really helps.
You bring up a good point, Brett. A lot of it's a cost type thing. Like larger groups or big corporations that have studios already. This is more about the remote worker kind of scenario, REMI type production. But in the cases of second, third tier kind of groups, they're looking to just make it a practical, get the same experience, but create, but not have that huge production studio to do it, right? And those kind of, the tools that real-time video kind of provides with Red5 make that really possible.
Yeah, with new technologies like this, there's a lot of sometimes resistance for this transformation and challenges in the setup. Are you seeing any of that with your current customers, or are you just making it super simple for them to get started?
I think there's always a resistance from the kind of old school broadcast guys. They're like, oh, no, this is kind of like a toy. We're not going to use that. I don't believe it'll work. So we've definitely had that kind of resistance. Like our I don't want to call out any specific names here because they're probably like even the groups we're dealing with, but one motorsport group, like they have pretty traditional, like, the trucks and then all this stuff. And we're like, okay, but at the same time, we need to get graphic overlays of what's happening with the vehicles in sync with the live video from the driver cams and stuff. And then, like time syncing that and getting it back into the production and the workflows. And you can't use just those like old, like first of all, an SDI cable is not going to connect to a car, right? There's no way. That's speeding around. It's not happening. And then so like all of these kind of workflows are not possible without the new technology, and you still get resistance from the like old school approach, right?
But so I agree with Chris on that. Getting outside of the major sports and you start to look at the tier twos. We have another really exciting partner in Team Track, and they're building a new facility, and we're seeing a lot of the changes happening. So you mentioned before about the 18-wheelers. You're not seeing those in the remote productions, but you have to be ready, or even the on-site productions, you have to be ready and pluggable ready. So new tech is actually, especially in production, is replacing at a very fast clip a lot of these outdated technologies so that you could have groups coming in to a multi-purpose facility. How everything's done, it also eliminates a lot of unnecessary equipment in the production room. So we're seeing a lot of those changeouts, and you're not going to be able to do it without some of this newer tech and supporting real time.
I guess another kind of interesting aspect of this is marrying new tech with the old approaches. It's a lot of it's been basically put together with like duct tape, like that kind of like it's nasty, right? Like we're seeing a lot of uses because we have this new True Time meetings product that we're rolling out pretty soon in our True Time studio, and this is allowing remote commentators or like people to become guests at shows. What they've been having to do before using our solution is you basically have to have like a Zoom app, set up a Zoom meeting. You have a laptop in the studio just running the Zoom meeting so they can get ISOs of each of the individual video contributors into it. It's like a nasty workflow. And then we're providing, hey, just send them this URL. It works in a browser. They join the meeting. They're able to have a conversation. It's very intuitive. And then that stream is just part of the Red5 system, which then we can hand off to Zixi or whatever platform that they're using to kind of manage their streams. And they've got their ISOs already. It's already set up. It's a very seamless workflow. And then you don't need these extra laptops sitting around just becoming a participant in a Zoom meeting just to grab that video. It's like, so I think it's a matter of simplifying a lot of this stuff too, right?
Yeah. So you guys are really famous for, sub 250 milliseconds interactive streaming. What other use cases? So right now you've talked about production use cases where you're ad inserting, you're doing live commentary. What other use cases do you foresee using, your extreme low latency solution?
I mean, we're seeing tons of this, right? I think one thing is the lines are blurring between a broadcast scenario and like the fan experience. If we're still talking sports, like I think we've got another customer, the Famous Group, a great partner of ours. They have this Zixi Live product where you're using, the people's cell phones in the arenas to actually do selfie cam up to the billboards in the arena. But now you imagine the same kind of scenario where those people are able to now become part of the broadcast. People from home cheering or whatever, all of that stuff can be streams that become part of the broadcast. And yeah, it's user contributed, but it's user contributed then going as part of the broadcast. And I can see the same thing happening with news, where you've got people on site at something that's unfolding. They're using their phones to actually stream that in. Like you imagine having like a CNN app or something like that. People can contribute, and then those feeds can become part of the live broadcast that then the professional journalists and commentators are actually getting that feed in, and then being able to ask questions of remote viewers and everything like that. So I think the lines are blurring, I don't think it's going to be traditional. Just everything happens in the studio, and it's only professional camera operators and everything else.
And one other thing I would add to it, in the other use cases, we do a lot of work in surveillance and intelligence, and two things come out in that 250 milliseconds. Now that bar is still high. The tech team has been spending a lot of time trying to just reduce every millisecond possible, because now you're not only interacting with the stream, you've got touching of, like, when we were talking about drones and things like that you actually have to have really quick maneuvering, press button left, right. So that's only one piece of it. And then the other side of it is the two-way communication. If you actually have people in the field or mission critical kind of things, and that can be for weather and other emergency type situations, you don't have the time for course correction. If somebody's in a mission critical situation and you have to have that communication two-way all the time, there's perfect applications with us too.
Yeah, Brett, you bring up an interesting point, a two-way communication. Typically, broadcasting has always been a one-way. You watch it coming out of the stadium. Do you foresee potential new avenues of business where you can bring someone to home helping to cheer on their team and show them on the jumbotron?
100%. Yeah, I mean, this is happening already. Like the Famous Group's doing this with a Zixi home product already. And they're able to pull that into the billboards in the arena, but also can become part of the broadcast that viewers at home are seeing themselves back, which is, it's a pretty cool effect. And then bringing in kind of that talk radio, kind of like, hey, let's take in the next caller. Now it's video chat on phones, right? And if you keep the latency down on the broadcast, the stream coming back, then it makes it possible. And then, there's also sports betting. That's another aspect that's coming in where the latency is really critical, where you want to do micro betting on the next play. You better believe that it has to be super, super low latency. Otherwise, people are going to be gaming the system like crazy,
And to add one more piece to it, it's, again, with the latencies and the communication. So on engagement, we've always talked about engagement for almost the past 5 years, right? Advertising, AI. And Chris, you've been spending a lot of time on this, but two very important pieces, especially with server-side ad insertion, and really like how fast can things move. And then, of course, I was hoping you'd be able to maybe elaborate on AI and the importance on that, and what's happening now triggered in these live streams. Yeah. We've been working a lot on that on the tech side.
Yeah, so real-time video coming in, and then being able to manipulate that stream, either just doing detection, like in the broadcast industry, the biggest one is like swear word bleeping, or blurring out things in the video that shouldn't be there. Somebody, flips the bird, like at a sports game or something, they want to blur those out. So we're actually doing a lot of stuff with pulling out raw frames from the video, handing that off to AI, like a model, which can then detect certain things, blur it back out, re-encode the video into us, and then that's making a part of the live broadcast stream, and doing those things on the fly. And then there's the ability to do live transcriptions. I know there's some legislation happening in the U.S. anyway to kind of force that issue to make it more accessible, the streams more accessible for everybody, particularly people with hearing disabilities. And being able to do that in real time is now possible because these language models are so good that, and the speed of them, we're actually working with an NVIDIA parakeet model right now, which can do this stuff, and it's instant. Stuff's coming out, transcribing exactly what you're saying, as you're saying it, and it's very cool.
That's that point you made there, already in Europe, and I think it's being rolled out now. It is the requirement, so the U.S. is on that. But also on the AI end, maybe some of the advancements that we've been working on in surveillance and, being able to detect anomalies and things like that.
I mean, there's so many use cases in AI that it's just the beginning too. It's fun.
Yeah, it's amazing you're still able to do that all within that 250 milliseconds of interactivity. It's crazy. Where do you see this type of production going in the next few years?
Um, Man, that's a hard thing to predict, right?
Well, think about your daughter and my son, right? I mean, they're watching more clips, less of the. I mean, live is still everything, but it has to generate. At least on my side, I see that it's going in a direction of young kids' attention spans, and they want to see what they want when they want it. They don't want delays. They don't want spoilers. All of the things that we've been battling.
I think that's the kind of obvious trend that's happening, and it's kind of a continuation. I think the thing that is probably less obvious, which is going to become more critical, is as fake video becomes more, you just can't tell. I think the in real life kind of validity of it and using live video where you can actually tell, the latency of that is going to become critical because it's going to be harder to fake. There's going to be like this kind of authenticity to it. And I think regular broadcast is going to be switched out with more, I wouldn't say it's necessarily user generated, but like taking user generated content and marrying that into probably AI generated content too. Like this little studio that we have right now, like we've got a real plant here and everything. Like all this stuff is not going to be necessary pretty soon, right? And then, but to make it like, how do I know that this is actually real? I think there's going to be something to that, and I don't know exactly what it is, but this being able to like authenticate it and say that this actually is a real live stream from this real person, I think is going to become critical.
Oh yeah, that's going to be so tough in the future. I don't know how people are going to differentiate. AI is really, doing a lot these days. How would you advise your customers that want to leverage some of those technologies? Would it be something you sell, or would it be an additive to what they're currently using?
Yeah, so our plans are with Red5 Cloud, we're going to make it several models available for people. And then we have this frame extractor, which does super, super low latency, like ripping of frames to hand off to a model like that. We're going to split it into two aspects. If you want just the frames and you want to handle everything from that point, great. We'll hand it off to you and let you do that stuff. And then probably make it in a cloud storage, like an S3 compatible cloud storage to pull up. That's obviously going to add a little bit of latency for that part of it. But we're going to provide models where people can just plug them in and then start using that for their own usage on Red5 Cloud pretty soon.
And early on, we touched on these companies that are hesitant to move to these types of workflows. Mm-hmm. If you could give them some kind of advice on how to get started, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing is you don't have to replace everything you're doing now. I think there's ways to take bits and pieces of the new technology and incorporate it into your current workflow, because the hardest thing to do is just like, okay, we're just going to rip all of this out and get rid of it and then start again and then like build it all with a cloud-based solution. I don't think that's very practical, and I think it's better to just take it piece by piece, solve real problems first, and then use new technology to solve those problems as you're going.
I agree on absolutely with especially that last statement. What trends I'm seeing, and I think it's a good thing, is the support of the ecosystem. We've seen a lot of unfortunate layoffs and things like that. Operationally speaking, unfortunate or not, I think it was necessary. We're seeing a lot of old technology from the bigger companies, the bigger broadcast type companies that are phasing out, very needed phase outs of old tech. But I think there's a new support now for, we didn't build everything here. If you choose partners wisely, if you work with companies that can provide really strong technical ability, software, hardware, whatever it is, but then add it to that ecosystem. And as Chris said, you don't have to replace everything. You just have to retool stuff. That's absolutely the direction. We're seeing it happening right now across the industry, for sure.
So we have another partner that works with Zixi as well as Chauffeur. They've got a really interesting ad platform that'll actually speaking of AI, they look at what's happening in the broadcast and then try to tailor ads to that so that when you trigger an ad, it's going to actually be relevant, right, to that content. The cool thing about the real-time streams delivering down to fans and stuff or viewers is that we also have a dedicated connection per person. So we actually kind of know who they are, as opposed to an HLS feed where it's like you got to go pull it, and then you're pulling segments off of the CDN. There's no way to know who's who when you're doing that scenario. In this case, we can actually do really targeted ad insertions per person and make it super relevant. And yeah, this company, Chauffeur, that we're working with, we're going to be rolling out something pretty cool with those guys pretty soon.
Yeah, their technology is really cool. I saw it at the last show. So you're saying basically you can now monetize down to the user level that's watching, not just the household, but to the specific user that's watching the stream.
That's right, and it's because it's a UDP like connection going out to each user, as opposed to a go fetch this segment file like on an HTTP basis. The problem with that approach is that you're going and fetching it from like multiple servers on a CDN. You have no way of knowing who's receiving that stream, so you can't really do super targeted stuff that way.
And when you're doing that super targeted, I bet it's going to be really valuable to advertisers.
Yeah.
Are you able to insert the ads in the real-time streaming, or is it an HLS version?
No, we insert it into the WebRTC, like stream directly. And then, it's media over quick is next. We're working on some really cool stuff with that too. So MOQ, like, it doesn't matter to us what the protocol necessarily is, but yeah, this is one aspect of WebRTC that we can really take advantage of, though.
Okay, cool. So before we wrap, we talked a little bit about AI and about how you guys are using it.
Yeah.
Would you want to share what your last AI query was? So like a ChatGPT or?
We certainly use AI quite a bit.
I mean, the most interesting one is we just did a video with Cashfly, one of our other partners, and I needed a clip of some guys like cheering in a like sports thing. So last ChatGPT thing, what I did for that was, hey, can you take this still image that I got, like, and then switch out the people, because I didn't feel comfortable with just using it verbatim. And they did a great job of that. And then I grabbed that image, handed it over to the VO, I don't know how Google's calling that product, and then had it animate and give them like, yeah, like in a real game. Video is like perfect, man. It's like crazy. But yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Chris and Brett, thanks for being on the episode today and sharing your ideas. It sounds like Red5 has a lot of great products coming out in the future. We can't wait to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.